There's nothing Paul likes as much as receiving feedback about the Joy of Cruising podcast. You can now send him feedback via the message link on each episode. He can't respond, but he may read your text on air. Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the Joy of Cruising podcast, Mikhail and Dan, creators of the Sometimes Sailing Cruise website and Instagram. I got to know Mikhail and Dan when I wrote about Sometimes Sailing in my new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, where I wrote about their penchant for small ship cruising as well as within a ship spaces. For instance, Celebrity Cruises The Retreat, Norwegian Haven, and Princess Cruises Medallion class. I hosted Sometimes Sailing on the Joy of Cruising podcast last year and mentioned how Mikhail and Dan were instrumental in motivating me to pursue my bucket list aspiration to sail a river cruise. The river cruise we chose is the AmaWaterways Soulful Epicurean French River Cruise 2024 on AmaKristina. The river cruise is rapidly approaching. We embark in August, and since Mikhail and Dan have sailed AmaKristina, I thought it fitting to welcome them back to share with the listeners what Cheryl and I can expect this summer. Welcome back, Dan and Mikhail, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here.
Good to see you all again. How you both doing?
We're good. Coming off a year of travel, and we purchased a house in Florida, and so it's been a little bit of housework, but definitely still some travel this year.
Well, congratulations on the new house, and I'm sure I'll catch up on recent travel. But first, tell our listeners about yourself. Some of our listeners missed your first episode here on the Joy of Cruising podcast. So give us some idea of where you're from. Well, I know that you live in Florida now for a long time. You're invested, but where do you live? Professional background, anything you would like to share?
So we're both originally New Yorkers, but completely different New Yorkers. So Mikhail grew up on Long Island, and then I grew up in tropical Buffalo, New York. And from
tropical, the frozen tundra.
So, and then we met in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we both had just a love of travel and a love of exploration and a curiosity for the world in general. So we started traveling, and then Mikhail started writing about our travels, and really that was the catalyst for the two blogs, Sometimes Home and Sometimes Sailing.
We're going to talk about mainly Sometimes Sailing, but so I want you to give us an overview of Sometimes Sailing, but say something about Sometimes Home.
Yeah, so Sometimes Home is kind of couples land-based travel, but of course solo travelers will find it useful too. It just, has great packing lists and inspiration, itineraries, and all that stuff. And then over the years, we found that we loved writing about our travel so much, we wanted to start another website. So actually during the pandemic, when there was a no sale order for cruising, we thought, go big, no guts, no glory. We started a cruise website when no one could cruise because we love river cruises and small cruises. So sometimes sailing started kind of as a spin-off of that to focus on more cruise stories and, packing lists specific to cruise itineraries and inspiration, things to do in the ports. So sometimes sailing, we focus mostly on small experiences like river cruises and expedition cruises, yacht cruises. And then on the bigger ships, because, of course we go on big ships too, we try to focus our best on ship within a ship experiences. So something like the Retreat on Celebrity Cruises, it's kind of like their suite class. Some people be more familiar with, maybe the Retreat on Holland America Line or the Haven on Norwegian, Grill Suites on Cunard. So we focus on that. We also have a bunch of Disney Cruise Line content because we've been on Disney Cruise Line a lot, and other people find what we write about very useful as a resource. So we love being able to provide that to our audience. So that is sometimes sailing in a nutshell.
All right. Well, we're going to mostly focus, but not entirely, because you guys do so much interesting travel. But we're going to focus mostly on river cruises. Most cruisers have not experienced a river cruise. So before you talk about your experience with them, briefly distinguish for us river cruises from traditional cruises.
Typically, river cruises are going to be much, much smaller than your ocean cruise. So, for example, a lot of them have about 150 to 200 passenger capacity, and you're not going to experience the same
entertainment.
The same level of entertainment. There's no stage. Maybe there's a small dance floor and a piano, something like that. And then you're also really getting to know the other passengers that you're sailing with. So you form relationships. To this day, I'm still texting and in contact with people that I've met on small format cruises years and years ago. It truly becomes a small community that you're both traveling with throughout the week, and you really build relationships. The other portion that I want to really highlight about river cruising is you're going to be visiting ports that you probably wouldn't visit on your normal vacation because it would take so long to get there. And these ports are maybe they're historic or have some sort of significance on the river. And for the most part, you're not going to have the 10,000 of your closest cruising friends all dumping into that port on the same day. And it's going to be a very intimate experience with these small towns or medieval villages or things like that throughout Europe or wherever you're cruising.
Do you ever stop on a river cruise where it stops at the various, mainly small towns? What's the largest town that you recall stopping in on a river cruise?
Well, I would say usually they start and end in a bigger city. So for example, when we went on the Colors of Provence cruise with AmaWaterways, it was start in Lyon, and that's, a major city. I think it's the third largest city in France. So that was pretty big.
Yeah. We were just recently on Riverside, and that ended in Budapest.
Right.
So
that's huge. The Danube River ones, yeah, to your point, like go to small cities in between. But, to answer your question, Paul, like Budapest is pretty big, and, spots in Munich, it starts in Munich. They bus people from Munich over to the port. So while Munich's obviously not on the river, like to start, you do get bussed over from there. So kind of things like.
So I suspect most people who take a river cruise maybe combine the cruise with some kind of experience, inside the big city where they end up.
Yeah, I think you bring up such an excellent point. We do that a lot. We'll piggyback either on the beginning or at the end of the trip, and we'll just kind of tack on more days in those cities that we start and stop in, or else you just kind of continue our travels from that and use the cruise as a catalyst to continue traveling.
Yeah, we always kind of bookend it with our own travel, but a lot of cruise lines offer an extension for a land portion for people that just want to kind of sign up and don't want to plan it and just, show up and they've planned it. The cruise line has planned it. But as Dan said, we always do our own travel before and after and bookend it with where we want to go and what we want to do.
So the river cruise portion of the trip, is that generally 7 days?
Generally 7 nights, 8 days is what we find is really typical.
Okay.
Yeah. It varies, but usually what is the most popular and what we're doing is usually that, because we like to spend like 2 weeks total usually abroad, and we kind of split up the other 7 days before and after. So usually it ends up being 2 weeks for us, but there are, of course, 12-night cruises and people enjoy those. There are cruises that are much more than that as well. 21-day itineraries, several month itineraries, but typically I would say 7 nights, 8 days is the most popular.
Yeah, our river cruise, which I'll try not to talk too much about because the listeners are probably going to be, I'm going to talk them to death over the next several months. so I won't say too much about it. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But our river cruise, which is in August, it's 7 days on the river, but then it's topped off with a 3-day excursion in Paris. So, but we didn't add that excursion on. That was, it's a 10-day experience. So, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So as I mentioned just now, we're going on our first river cruise on AmaWaterways and AmaKristina, and this is one of those episodes that I plead guilty in terms of something that I definitely want to hear about, and that's your experience on AmaKristina, which happens to be what we're taking. So let's get right into it. First of all, is AmaKristina your only experience with AmaWaterways?
Yes. We have only been on AmaKristina with AmaWaterways. We know that many cruise lines and their fleet, a lot of, ship designs are sister ships. So for those listening that don't know what a sister ship is, it's the same exact architectural plans for the ship, and maybe the interior finishes and the fabrics are slightly different. But we do know that AmaKristina has sister ships. But that is our only personal experience on AmaWaterways, AmaKristina. And we're very excited for you, by the way, as people that try to, talk to others about river cruising and why we love it and hope that they go and they experience it. That is why we are so excited for you. And it's just like amazing. We just love river cruising so much. So whenever we hear somebody might be a convert and is going on their first river cruise, we're super excited. So we couldn't be more excited for you and Cheryl.
Well, thank you. And you're directly, I don't want to say directly responsible because that sounds like,
Guilty. Guilty again.
You directly influenced us to, I had a river cruise on my bucket list. I have this huge and ever expanding bucket list, and something usually sets it off where I act on an item on my bucket list. And so I clearly had river cruising on my bucket list. And it was when I interviewed you for my latest book, The Joy of Cruising Again. I can almost remember the exact moment in that series of interviews when I made the decision, we're going to do this. And
you put it out there.
I'll probably, prior to this issue or after this issue, also, play our initial podcast, which was after, the discussions in the book, and because that's a good primer for river cruising also. But in fact, I kind of almost remember not only the moment when I made that decision, but the exact words. I think it was something like, and if you fall off, you can stand up in the river.
Oh, yeah, because the swimming came up. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I'm one of those people. I have no issue in traveling the largest mega ships, but I maybe sheepishly admit that I can't swim.
Yeah.
So so
No need. It's fine.
Yeah.
No need.
so when did you go on AmaKristina?
It was fall 2022. I think it was
Yeah.
October 2022.
All right. Well, tell us all about it. I mean, from the moment you walked up to the whatever they call it on river cruises,
Yeah.
river ships.
Mm.
I guess it's more like a ramp. I
Yeah,
mean,
not a gangway.
gone. No gangway. That's, talking about comparing river cruising to ocean cruising. And shameless plug, we have a really helpful article on our website comparing river cruising to ocean cruising. One of the joys of ocean cruising, to use a word from your vocabulary for all the joy of cruising, is that you just walk on the ship. I mean, there's no security. And it's not concerning. I mean, I understand why there's security on big ships. There's thousands and thousands of people, but these are people that have paid a lot of money to go on a river cruise. And it's only, like Dan said, average 150 guests, and you just walk on. You go up a ramp that's on the waterfront on the dock, and you just walk right up to the ship. And there's no time wasted in boarding at all. I mean, you walk on, there's no line. You just walk to your room. Somebody greets you. They're expecting you. They've looked over the roster of who's coming, and they show you to their room. The most I think you would wait with a line is if you were bussed in with other, cruisers and you arrive at the same time as them. But even then, they've always been so efficient. So you walk up to the ship. For AmaKristina, for the Colors of Provence cruise in France, we started in Lyon, and we overnighted in Lyon for the first night, and then we ended in Avignon. And for 2024, this year, the cruise ends in Arles, Arles. French words don't pronounce some of the letters, so that's where famous for Van Gogh's Yellow, the cafe painting. That's why a lot of people know it. Vincent van Gogh painted a series of paintings there, and that was his most famous. But so our itinerary was very similar to the current itinerary, with just two cities flip-flopped. So we started in Lyon, amazing. It's known as a culinary city. Amazing food there. And then we cruised and went to places like Tarascon, which is a really small village, which was really interesting. We loved being there. And then we went to Pont de Gard. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site with aqueducts that were really amazing to see. I'm trying to think where else we went. We had amazing stops on that cruise. So Arles, I said, Avignon, Lyon. We ended up extending our trip in Marseille because it was so easy to get to from there. But that wasn't part of the official itinerary. But if anyone's listening that is considering this cruise, we highly recommend going to Marseille, because it's one of the oldest cities actually in Europe.
Now I'm gonna interrupt and back you up a little bit.
Yeah.
Two things. One, when you started talking, you referenced a blog post or website post differentiating river cruise, ocean cruise. For my listeners, and I know if they're listening to this post, they're interested or have done a river cruise. Do you have the exact URL, or can you?
I will send it to you if you want
Yeah,
to put
I
it
will.
in the show
Okay.
notes. Yeah, but if you go to sometimessailing.com, that's two S's in a row in the middle, and search river cruises versus VS period ocean cruises, it'll come up.
And then the other thing I wanted you to elaborate on, you called your itinerary was it Colors of
Provence, the region.
Okay, so give us a quick overview of what that is. I mean, my itinerary has a name. We
What is yours?
Soulful Epicurean French River Cruise.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah. So tell them what colors of Provence,
So,
Provence,
yeah.
colors of Provence. Say some more about that particular itinerary.
Yeah. So at first, when this itinerary came to our attention, we thought, oh, lavender in Provence. That's what Provence is typically known for. But then we realized it was October and lavender blooms in the summer mostly. So we knew we wouldn't be seeing that. So then we were extra curious. What does that mean? So I like that the itinerary name is colorful. But once we were there, we kind of had to really think, what is colorful about this? And it really reflects kind of just like the colors of the towns that we visited and we went to, whether it was, the sunrise or sunset over the vineyards, or some of the really pretty architecture and such in the small towns we went to, or, luckily the flowers, not lavender, but just the flowers and landscaping in the small towns that we stopped in.
It was also fall, so there was a little bit of color, but that year in France, 22 was that summer was brutal as far as heat in all of Europe.
Mhm.
So the leaves weren't that beautiful that particular fall, but
So, and you said this, but I missed it. What part of fall again? It was August.
It was
I mean
October.
October. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I suspect we're going to be a lot hotter because we're in August.
yes.
You should take a handheld fan, and we do travel with a handheld fan, and I am happy to send you a link because it is the best and definitely helps you. And everybody, if you take that portable fan with you, people are going to stop you on your tour with you and say, where did you get that?
Can I buy
That
it?
always happens to us. Yeah. There's always somebody who we send a link to that gets it after we are carrying it around. They're jealous. So it's a good handy fan for August. It gets hot in France, July and August.
So you got right into your itinerary, which sounded wonderful. And by the way, we're stopping at most of the cities you mentioned. I only heard you mention one. I can't. It was a very small location. We're not stopping there.
Oh, there's Paris gone, and then there's two others, Tournon and Hermitage, which is very well-known wine region. So yeah, those are. Oh, and Vienne is another one that we went to. Vienne, that was really cool. Very much centered around Roman ruins, actually. France, that's not the first thing you think of. So that was kind of really cool.
Yeah. I know we go Tournon, Alls. I'm probably saying it wrong. Avignon. I'm probably saying it wrong. Marseille. So a lot of the same places, and again, as I said, it wraps up in Paris. So anyway, the itinerary sounded wonderful, but I'm like a little kid at Christmas. I want to go even before that. When you tell us about after you walked on the ship and you went to your, I guess they call it a stateroom or cabin on a river cruise.
Yeah, all the same. Yeah.
So paint us a picture. What was your room like?
Oh yeah.
So we really enjoyed the room for for me it was two reasons. Typically on any cruise ship, the bathroom is pretty small, and but this particular room that we were in had a great bathroom, like a double sink, which is pretty rare on a lot of ships.
A double sink.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if you had the same room that I got, because I'm already excited about. And I do remember in picking the rooms, there was something about the bathroom that led me to pick this class. It's not like a suite or anything, super, because it was already very expensive to just get on. But so it wasn't anything premium, but it was more than the standard bathroom. I don't remember the particulars. So
Yeah,
that sounds like what you had.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, I'm just I'm like 6'2". I always bump my elbows on the shower when I'm trying to shower, or as my head is scraping on the ceiling, because they're just small spaces. But definitely remember on Alma, it was I had plenty of room. I was comfortable in the bathroom.
They had like the recess, like, I don't know what it's called. I'm not an interior designer, but the recess lighting, like above the bed, that was really sexy. That was cool. And
yeah.
then you had brought up the TV was the Mac computer.
Oh, right. Yeah. They have an iMac there that is both your TV for the room and it can double as a workstation.
Yeah.
And you can access a lot of the information about the ship right there on that.
Well, I'm in my glory because you said, it was fitting for somebody 6'2". Well, I'm 6'2".
Okay.
You mentioned the iMac. I'm a Mac guy. I'm an Apple fanboy, and I thought Mikkel said sexy. So in whatever context, I'm there for it.
Got you covered.
I covered. Yeah. I love that. There was also a mini fridge in there, which we loved because one of our favorite things to do wherever we go in Europe is go to the grocery store. And in those towns, there's always, a grocery store there. So we went and we got some cheese and some things that I absolutely love, that you can get fresh squeezed orange juice for a couple of euros at grocery stores in Europe, which you can get fresh squeezed orange juice in the US, but it's about triple the price. So I love getting a small container of fresh squeezed orange juice to have in the room. So I really appreciated that there was a refrigerator in there. And another nice thing about river cruising is that you can take all that onto the ship. They're not like going through your bags. And even if they did, you're welcome to bring that stuff on board. You can buy a bottle of wine and have it in your room. It's very easy to do those things. So it was nice that there was a refrigerator.
Yeah.
So you had a balcony, right?
Yes, we had a balcony and then kind of a Juliet balcony right next to it. With like a little lounge area with 2 seats. That was really
Okay.
nice.
That's what we have. So I never heard that term, Juliet balcony, but
Yeah, so it's basically like just you can open the doors and the banisters right there, so you can't really go outside, but so one of them was the balcony, you could go outside, and then right next to it was like just you could open the doors and just enjoy the fresh air, which was nice. And in August, you'll love that.
yeah, I like that too. Do you remember which? I guess it's 3 levels. Do you remember which level you were on?
I want to say we were on 3. We were on 2 or 3.
Because it sounds like we have the exact same room, although I think I'm on, I think I'm on level 2.
It does sound like it. It does sound like it. We could have been on 2. It was, 2 years ago, but did we go? So when you walk into the lobby of AmaKristina, there's a beautiful double-sided staircase and a cylindrical elevator right there. So I'm trying to recall if we went up the stairs. I don't think we did. We might have been on 2 because when you go up the stairs, the cruise director's desk is right there, and we never passed it going to our room. So I think we might have the same room, Paul.
Yeah.
There's only like 3 decks on a river cruise. I mean, there's one underneath that's typically for the crew and the engine room and everything. But yeah, it's
yeah, and I have questions about that 3rd deck because I've seen photos of you guys, and I know I saw at least one on the 3rd deck. But I'm still at the room.
Okay, we're in the room. We're in the room.
Like I said, I'm like a kid at Christmas, so I want to know like all the details.
Exciting.
So with the refrigerator,
Yes.
could you like bring stuff from like evening meal? Could you bring stuff to your room from the meal?
You could, but I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do it, which doesn't mean you
Oh,
can't.
so I would look totally gauche if I started. I would look like
Yeah.
what's it called, a square peg in a round hole if I start bringing food to my room, huh?
You'll be so full from dinner. Everything's, a seated dinner. And at the time they were doing like a really small buffet for breakfast where you could order off menu too. But the thing about river cruising, typically, not every, but a lot of river cruises, AmaWaterways included, was that sometimes you get back to the ship after an excursion and dinner's not for a few hours, like maybe 2 hours, and you find you're a little peckish, but there's nothing to eat. Which is not to say you go hungry at all, but this is partially why we like to have, chips or, something. In France, they have really interesting potato chip flavors like mustard or mozzarella and pesto, or, they have rotisserie chicken chips. They had hamburger
Rotisserie chicken chips.
flavored chips. Yeah, like Lay's potato chips. So we enjoyed having some potato chips in the room too. So nobody takes food really from the meals. Not to say that you can or anything, but we just never saw it happen. So yes, you might be square peg round hole.
Yeah, I guess I won't try to break that tradition.
I don't know. You could try and let us know what happened.
Yeah. I kind of got used to that. I mean, they don't. That's not the norm on other cruise ships. But I was on a cruise. I just got home this weekend, and I was on my first Virgin Voyage cruise. It was a transatlantic, and one of the things that there's a whole lot of things they do differently than other cruise lines, and I'll talk about that on the podcast. I think it's coming up. It'll be before this one. But anyway, one thing that they do, I don't remember seeing anywhere, is they have in a couple of eating places, mainly in their galley, which is like a food hall that takes the place of the buffet. They have like charcuterie boxes and bento boxes of sushi, things you can like just grab and go.
Grab and go. I love that.
So every night in our room we had, of course I haven't gotten on the scale since we got home, but every night we had, not Tupperware, with plastic containers of stuff. Mm-hmm. And because the time was off so much, we were watching the NBA playoffs while we were there. And, we're watching a game that's on at, 12 o'clock here in the States. We're watching a game 6 a.m. Because we're really into basketball. And so it's nice to have those goodies.
Yeah, for sure.
In the room. So I don't want to sound like this is something I do all the time.
When you're 6 a.m. basketballing,
But Virgin Voyages has kind of given me some ideas. So when you said little fridge in the room, and I'm sure they put together nice fruit plates and salads and all that, I was thinking, well, I could take one of those to the room.
Yeah. I will say, because are you in the 3 days in Paris before or after?
After.
Are you in Paris at all, like the night before?
Yeah.
You are.
So
go to.
So I guess if you're asking, is there touring time in Paris?
Well,
is that what you mean?
My real goal is to find out when you have time to go to the grocery store to get a fresh treat to bring on the ship, like the chips and stuff. I'm so obsessed with food that, it's always at the top of my list, but I'll send you guys the name of our favorite grocery store that's absolutely everywhere. It's Carrefour.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my recommendation.
So you go into your room and it's great. I guess your first meal is lunch.
Yeah, if there's optional lunch on river cruises, typically the day you get on the ship, and usually you can board sometime around, it depends on the ship and where it is and the cruise line, but usually you can board sometime around noon. And if your room isn't ready until, let's say, 2, then you just hang out and they take care of your luggage and you have lunch and you can get on and off. That's the joy of like just getting on and off the ship. There's no barrier. It's not like a big to do. You just walk off the ship. You're right in the port city. You don't need to be bussed in. You just walk around and then you come back for all aboard time and dinner. And then, you cruise on the river. It's great.
So a typical lunch, correct me if I'm wrong, is lunch typically buffet style?
So on AmaWaterways, it was typically plated. So we would sit down to dinner and they would have like already on the table, or they'd put it down as you sat, would be like I don't even know what you would call it, like a little plate with, let's say, 3 little bowls with like a mozzarella or a little ham and melon or a tapenade, like an olive tapenade, and then bread with it. And then you would pick off the menu for AmaWaterways. Yeah.
That's for lunch.
That's for lunch, yeah.
So there is no buffet option at lunch.
I can't remember if there was a little small buffet option upstairs in the bar area, but I don't recall there being a buffet for lunch. Do you?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And then dinner, everyone at the same time, right?
Yeah. So the thing about river cruising is that generally there's one restaurant on a ship. That's not a hard, fast rule. I mean, AmaKristina has this great restaurant that I recall being at the aft of the ship, and everybody gets to eat there at least once during the cruise. And it's kind of like a more intimate dining experience. And you can see the chef cooking through the glass in the little kitchenette kind of area that's there, finishing the plates and everything. So they kind of sort of have 2 restaurants, but typically everybody is generally eating all their meals in the one restaurant. And that's very typical of all river cruises. So you definitely get to know your feet, just have memory to walk towards the restaurant for all your meals. So dinner is there as well.
Now, this is something that I'm interested in. Literally today, well, as this interview is taking place, a podcast was just released from Paul and Carol Love to Travel. And it was to hear their experiences on AmaWaterways, AmaDara, which cruises the Mekong. Mm-hmm. And they said something, and I'm pretty sure this is a distinct difference with AmaKristina. So AmaDara, unless I misunderstood them, and I've listened to it a zillion times, but I need to listen to it again, they have boss service all day, and it's included. And I think I read that AmaKristina, it has sort of open bar, like right around the dinner time, like it's almost like a cocktail hour or a happy hour, whatever you want to call it. But it's not around the clock, which of course wouldn't matter to me. I'm not a huge drinker, but I'll definitely be there around dinner time if it's open bar, that's for sure. Do I have it right?
So you are correct. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret that we didn't realize until a few days in. So this will help you from the get-go. So when you walk in during this little cocktail hour, which is really lovely, and it's such a nice time to, talk to other guests and get to know them, they have already pre-mixed a bunch of cocktails. So when everybody walks in, they can grab a drink off of the bar. However, what you don't realize, and you're going to know as soon as you get there, is that there are menus on the cocktail tables, and you can order something off the menu complimentary. So for example, Dan prefers whiskey or bourbon over a mixed cocktail, and you can order that neat or on the rocks or what have you, and it's included in that cocktail hour, but you don't realize that because you just think the mixed drinks are what's included. But you and Cheryl, you grab that menu and you order what you want.
Okay, good. Let's see. What are the tips and tricks for the ship? Talk about the deck, the top deck. So there's some recreational activities. There are rooms on the top deck, Right, rooms on deck 3, but then right above deck 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the top deck, I guess you could consider 4, but I don't think they call it that.
Right. It's usually call it the sun deck or something like that.
So talk about the sun deck. Yeah, that sounds fun.
To me, that's what river cruising is all about, and especially in Europe, because these cities were built around the river, right? That was the main transportation in and out of the river for decades or centuries. So when you're cruising in through those cities, you should be up on that top deck to really experience how you were supposed to experience coming into those cities. You get to see just the infrastructure and the beautiful, amazing buildings on the waterfront, and then you really get a glimpse of just the scenery, and you're able to take it in outside. Doing it in your room on opening the deck and is great also, but going up top, you really get that full view of what it's like to be on a river and cruising.
Does the top deck get overly crowded?
Not really. No, you've got plenty of room to spread out while you're cruising, and especially those days when you are cruising. I always try to go up and experience that. Also, the other highlight for the AmaKristina is the pool up on the sun deck. Beautiful pool that you can really just jump into, and no diving, but
you can stand. I'm 5'1", and you can stand. You can. I don't even think you could really swim in there if you tried.
but it's a great place, especially when you're going this summer. Like, you're gonna want to hang out by the pool up there. Let's see what else is up there.
Don't they have a swim up bar, right?
They do. It wasn't open when we were there because it was October, but it will likely be open for you.
It's if you bring your own beer up there, it's always a swim up bar,
Good point. Or wine. Whatever you want.
And they'll let you do that. There was no
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't know if you can bring glass in there, but
we can bring glass.
But like you said, they have a bar. They have bar service there anyway, right? During the
right.
You can, you won't have a problem getting.
So what else is on the top deck? Are there any kind of communal recreational activities? I mean, I know it's not that big.
Yeah. So I think there was cornhole up there, but there's when we were on it, there was an oversized chessboard with chess pieces that were like 3.5 feet tall. They're very interactive there, and then there's a running track around also. So if you want to get in a couple miles in the morning, you can.
Yeah, I'll tell my wife about that.
Yeah. It is. I don't run. We're not runners, and Dan works out more than I do, but it is really lovely actually to just talk with a new friend or your partner and just walk. I mean, it really is nice. And you'd be surprised. There's always a couple people that are always up there walking.
Yeah.
It's really, you can get the feeling of doing just so much exercise and so many laps because it's only so big. But that's up there. There's a lounge space up there too.
Now, did you all try the fitness area?
Yeah, I did. I always try to check out the gyms on the river cruises. It's wild how different they are. Some are teeny tiny with a closet size with just some free weights and one Peloton or exercise bike. But I was impressed with the gym on the AmaKristina. There was plenty of room. It was, I think, a couple people could comfortably work out in there, and they had a good, just anything you need, all the basics, weights and I think there was it was either a rowing machine or a cycling machine in there also. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Some ships don't have them at all, so even having one is a win. But it was nice on AmaKristina.
What about the spa? Did you try that?
I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
Ship. Sorry, we're not much help in that department for that trip. I don't think we did.
Yeah, Paul and Carol were saying of course, they were in Vietnam, and how cheap the spa services are
Yeah.
versus what he thought I would encounter in Europe. So
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Yeah, one of the nice things about river cruising is that while the cost seems more than a mega ship, and it is, don't get me wrong, people need to remember that it's all inclusive. It's truly all inclusive. Now, the variable for that is, the drinks package a cruise line includes or the flights included, but generally speaking, all river cruises include your excursions and your meals, of course, and wine or beer with lunch or dinner. That's included. You never really have to add anything else. So let's say that the cost per person of a river cruise is $4,500. Yes, that's a considerable amount, but there's not really as much variable as a mega ship because you're not having to add on every excursion. They're included. And one of the things that we really loved about AmaWaterways and why we were interested in sailing with them was that they include more options for excursions than other river cruise lines. So instead of just maybe one or two excursion options for, the afternoon, there's 3 or 4, and that's all included. So you just pick from that. So between the incredible excursions that we had and, there's entertainment at night, like a band, or there was a pianist every night. We didn't really have that much time for a spa treatment. Like we weren't looking to fill our schedule with anything else because enjoying the amazing balcony, enjoying the room, enjoying the pianist, enjoying speaking to other guests, like I guess the spa had never actually really crossed my mind until you said that. Whereas on other ships, maybe we have more time on board. Like in December on Riverside, we did because it was really cold in Europe that December, this past December. So we did go to the spa and that was great. But, I think one of the great things about AmaWaterways is the programming and the focus on small businesses and supporting them, and in the port cities, supporting the community. So we really focus
in the port cities. Do they give you what's the right word? Insight on places you should check out? You mentioned something about supporting small businesses. Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm. They more so in who they partner with for the excursion is what I mean. When you get to a city, they always have a map for that city before you get off, and you can carry that. I always download the map of the city on Wi-Fi. So I download the map before we even leave our house, because you can do that in Google Maps. So instead of just going there and relying on Wi-Fi, which we have the most amazing pocket Wi-Fi that we take everywhere, so that's never an issue, but I like to have the map downloaded so I can mark it up and save places. So you can easily download the map to your phone before you leave Wi-Fi, and then even if you're off Wi-Fi, you can use it. Sometimes it's nice to be off Wi-Fi because, just to be disconnected is great. But the small towns and communities, they're supporting more so in the choice of who they partner with. So like when we did a wine tasting, it was just like, this couple that owned this winery, and it was in their family for generations, and that was going to support them, that kind of thing.
So what were a couple of your most memorable excursions?
For me, I really liked the small town Tarascone.
Mm-hmm.
There was a legend about somebody fought a dragon that sort of looked like a turtle in the river to set the village free, and they have a big statue of a turtle dragon thing by the castle. I thought it was just a fun, interesting small town with a little bit of medieval history sprinkled in there. And it was one of those places that we would have never gone to on a vacation, or like 4.5 hours was the perfect amount of time to spend in the town. But it was just a fun kind of quirky excursion that I really enjoyed.
And we literally, I mean, when I can't stress enough, which Dan brought up, like how central these ships dock in the city. You get off the ship and then we were right next to this historic castle that was then a prison that, we had the most amazing view. We could see the ship from the top of the castle between the turrets. And, we were just walking around the town and there was nobody there. There was nobody there. Like we saw a few residents, but this town in particular had decided to do industry instead of tourism decades ago. So they're not like a big tourist destination, but they had plenty to do for, as Dan said, the 4 hours we were there. And that was great. So when we got back to the ship, because we did one of the shorter excursions on purpose, so we had more time, to enjoy the ship. I went in the pool and I was the only person in the pool. That's probably the photo you saw, because it was just an unexpectedly beautiful day in October and it was like warm enough to go in the pool. So that was great. And then another excursion that I loved was we hiked in a vineyard, and the hiking is optional, of course. So if you didn't want to hike, you didn't have to do this excursion. And the guide was so great and so in tune with people's paces and everything that, it was kind of during golden hour, the time before sunsets. And it's one of the most sought after wine areas in this region in Provence. It's like, they told us all the statistics about how much a piece of land would go for there. You can't even buy land there anymore. But it was just gorgeous, just a guided hike through the vineyards. We saw a donkey and a worker doing, some work on the vines. And, as Dan said, it was a very colorful time when the leaves were changing and it was just stunning. We had the most gorgeous view of the river. We could see the ships from up there and it was just great. And it was, guided. We wouldn't have known this was there on our own. And AmaWaterways set it up and it was very memorable. And of course it ended with a wine tasting. So that was great.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, I've asked you about your room. I've asked you about excursions, sort of the layout of food. Talk a bit about the selection of food. What were your highlights for dinner?
So AmaWaterways is very proud about their association with, I cannot remember the name. It's very French. It's kind of this like culinary club. Sorry. No. It's kind of like this culinary, club's not the right word. Like certification award. It's this group that, they're kind of one of maybe the only cruise line that's a part of it. And one night they do dinner with it, but to be very candid, we're not really sure where the association shone through for that dinner, but you will probably have a dinner that is, labeled with that. I think so that's just one thing that stood out because they very much are very proud of it. So you'll probably encounter that, but overall, the food on AmaWaterways was good. We're very particular about food. It did not knock our socks off. But you'll find plenty to eat. They're accommodating. They have good options. You'll be well fed. But unfortunately, especially 2 years later, nothing stands out except for we did have a lovely dinner in that kind of chef's table room.
Yeah.
A few hits, a few misses, taste-wise. The ambiance really added to that being a great experience and a change of scenery during that cruise because, like we said, the restaurant is basically where you are all the time. But, the typical options on a river cruise, you'll find that the menu rotates, but they have some always items that you can get. Usually it's like you can always get salmon, you can always get a steak, you can always get grilled chicken kind of thing. So does something come to mind that I'm missing with that? Yeah.
The other thing I would add to that is I remember specifically for the chef's table that we attended, they did a fantastic job with wine pairing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we were in France, so they really leaned into that. And that's one thing that I'm always very excited about is when they do get a pairing right. And I think that at that particular chef's table, like they did get that right. And I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Now, a cruise tradition for me, and since this is France, I suspect I'll be able to get on escargot.
Mm.
Ooh, I hope so.
It seems like there was at least it seems like it was an option at least once. I would probably say it was. I almost remember
We
it.
like escargot.
Yeah, I almost remember it maybe a lunch special or something like that. So,
You're gonna have to report to us if there was
Yeah.
escargot. Most recently, we were on Riverside, a great luxury cruise line, and they had really good escargot.
yeah.
So while I don't particularly remember it on our cruise, that doesn't mean they didn't have it. And my fingers and toes are crossed that they have it for you.
So you've mentioned a number of river cruise lines. Compare and contrast AmaWaterways with some of the other lines that you've been on. What do they do better? What do they do worse?
They have a cruise director, which I always appreciate. Not every river cruise line has a cruise director, but I really think that having sort of a group leader to go to if you have questions or concerns and don't relate to the front desk is really helpful. And it's just kind of like a nice space, the same reason you love a cruise director on a big ship is kind of the same reason you like it on a small ship. However, the difference is that it becomes somebody you really can find and talk to, whereas on a big ship, you might never just casually run into the cruise director just because, the ship's so big. So that's one thing I really enjoyed.
Yeah, to kind of build off of that, I think our cruise director did a fantastic job with the port talks. So on a river cruise, the night before you go into a port, they'll have just a small presentation. Typically, they'll have a small presentation during cocktail hour and just kind of explaining what the port for the next day is going to be like, or maybe there's some history or just some fun facts or what it's known for. And I thought our cruise director did a fantastic job with that and giving us that information for the next day.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Maddie at AmaWaterways. She is the cruise director. She is on Instagram, and I will ask her if she's going to be on your cruise. That would be awesome. Another thing that we liked about Ama that we mentioned before is the amount of options for included excursions. That was really, I think they do that better than other cruise lines just for, the quality and the options and the quantity kind of thing. But it's still quality with the quantity, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The ships are really nice. They could maybe use a little decor update. We thought that the AmaKristina restaurant could use new inspiration that's more 2024. Other cruise lines, Emerald is like really modern. Emerald even just announced that they're redoing the interiors to even, be more up with the times. So we do appreciate when ships kind of are really in tune to that. Other things that we liked about them, like you said, the wine was great.
Mm-hmm.
We love the cocktail hour. Not every cruise line has that. Not every river cruise line has that. So that was, a shining star on their ship. And I remember the lounge and kind of this like little library and fireplace area they had was really lovely to just kind of sit and read a book. The top deck is great. We've seen top decks that are as nice, but lack a pool. So we love that there was a pool. It's just a nice option for something else to do. The entertainment at night was great. They had, at least 2 kind of trios come on, singers, musicians kind of things. We love that there was a pianist that I mentioned before. So there was always live music. I mean, you just can't beat it. We love live music. So that was great.
These trios who came on, were they on board ship or were they from local community? I know there's a mix in some river cruises. They get some guests from local towns.
So these ones were local. So it really helped bring home just the area that you were cruising through and it helped us to feel like we were a part of that community and very different, right? So it was maybe one night it was very high energy, or maybe one night was a little bit more mellow. You really get a nice diverse selection of music.
Yeah, our entertainment will be, I think, a little different because this is a full ship charter by an organization that I've traveled with before. They do things top notch. So they are bringing their own kind of a host. And he's a nationally known or internationally known comedian. In fact, he's going to be on the show in a few weeks. I can't remember. I should have the schedule in front of me when I'm saying these things. I can't remember if he's before you or I think after you. And so they're bringing him. They have their own dance instructor.
Wow.
So they're bringing their dance instructor. I think he's some ballroom stuff, some line dancing, what have you. They're bringing like a jazz musician, and then DJ. So they're bringing a lot of their, and they always do this on these high end. They do like only high end ships like Regent, Seven Seas, Viking, all of that. So they'll be bringing some of their own entertainment, but then there's also the cruise. One of the themes of the cruise is jazz, throughout France. So there'll be jazz shows, and I'm not sure if we get off or they come on, and so it has a jazz theme and a Black History theme.
Yeah, you might not have time for the spa.
Yeah. Oh, we'll find time. But to move away from Ama, it's been a year or so since we had you on the show. Catch us up on any travels you have done in the last few months, since we last spoke.
Well, I'm pretty sure the last time we spoke, we were in Seville, Spain. That's when we caught up. So from Seville, we came back to the States. We did a Tennessee River cruise,
which was great with American Cruise Lines. That was awesome.
Which was a lot of fun. We also did an Alaskan cruise with Alaska Dream Cruises.
49 passengers.
Then we piggybacked off of that with Holland America through Canada, which was also just a fantastic cruise. The Zuiderdam. It was it started in Boston and went up to Quebec. So it did the Maritime Providences, and it was a fantastic cruise.
Yeah, so we did that in September, and then
we went to Japan for 6 weeks. But I bounced around there, Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka.
That was your long delayed honeymoon.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Good memory. It was. It was. And actually, we kind of forgot that because we got married in 2019, and then we all know what happened in 2020 when we were supposed to go to Japan for our honeymoon. And a friend reminded us it was our honeymoon, much like you just did. So when you make a reservation at restaurants, sometimes they say, "Are you celebrating anything?" And I said, "Yes, we are, our honeymoon." So there were 2 restaurants in particular that they kind of did like a cute little happy honeymoon plate, and definitely made us feel like it was our honeymoon. So that was nice. We were, a long honeymoon for 6 weeks. It was great. We absolutely loved Japan. So we were there.
Yeah, I could have, maybe that's an excuse to bring you back. I could have spent a lot of time on Japan. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that Paul and Carol are on to talk about their AmaWaterways river cruise. We actually finish up the discussion with Japan, because after the Mekong River cruise, they then went on a Japan experience. So,
Great.
So now I have an excuse to bring you back.
Yes. We tried to make a cruise work when we were there, but it was the end of the cruise season there because it was like fall that we went, and we just couldn't find a cruise that really worked out for the schedule. Our Airbnbs and such that were already booked. So it is on our bucket list to do a Japan cruise one day.
Yep.
So anything else after Japan?
We did Dominican Republic, and then
that was a land trip.
So that was, a family wedding. So it was kind of a little family reunion and a land trip. And so we we're in two different worlds between Japan and then literally 2 days later, Dominican Republic. When we got back, we did that. And then what did we do after
We finished up our year back in Europe, and we did 2 back-to-back cruises there. We did a river cruise with Transcend, and then that started in Munich and ended in Vienna.
I think it started, we were in Munich first. That's why we went to Munich first, and then we traveled to Frankfurt to start. And that was all the Christmas markets and everything. Yep. And Transcend is a charter only cruise line, but they sometimes will, long convoluted, they will sometimes be able to sell to consumers to kind of get on there. So that was really cool. And then
we did directly from that, we jumped on Riverside, the Riverside Mozart, and started in Vienna and then went to Budapest.
That was amazing.
So we spent celebrated New Year's Eve in Bratislava, and just had a fantastic cruise with Riverside.
Yeah. And
well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It sounds like you guys river cruise more than you mega cruise.
We absolutely do. Or a small cruise like Alaskan Dream Cruises with 49 passengers in Alaska. And next week we're going with Celebrity Cruises. We were invited on their inaugural voyage of Celebrity Edge in Alaska. And what we're really excited about is to see the differences. Of course, we have, our own preconceived notions about the differences between the big ships and the small ships going there, but we'll be able to really tell our audience and everyone firsthand what the differences are. And, we love Celebrity. So just being on another Edge class ship, the Edge itself is great. And everything about the Edge brings people closer to the water and that series of ships. So we're really excited and grateful to be sailing with Celebrity next week.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. What upcoming cruising or travel do you have planned?
So we're really excited about Celebrity next week. In July, we are partnering with Windstar Cruises to do their Around Iceland itinerary, which we're really excited about. We just love cruising. So we'll be on Star Pride for that. We are cruising with Uncruise in December in Hawaii. Psyched about that. We've never been on MSC. That will change in November when we sail from the United States on MSC.
Which ship?
MSC, I want to say it's called Oceans.
Is it? Do you know if it's their Explorer line or the regular line?
Oh, you're saying Explorer? No, it's not Explorer Journeys. No, it's not Explorer. No, it's the regular.
Because Explorer Journeys, I think, is their luxury tier.
Yeah. That's the newer. This is MSC. MSC, we need to step foot on the Swarovski crystal staircase for ourselves. So we will be on MSC in the Caribbean. And we also are going with Viking on the Douro River, which we're really excited about in the fall.
Wow. Well, I hear all kind of reasons to have you back. So let's go ahead. Let's go. When is your last cruise for 24? Is that the Viking one?
The last cruise for 24 is Hawaii, and I think we get back right after Christmas. We really butt up right for the new year.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and pencil you in for January 25.
Perfect.
Because I can't get enough of you guys, and I know that my listeners, will gain so much from hearing you speak, and we'll have a lot to chat about with all of those trips that you just discussed. So I'm telling you now, listeners, somewhere around early 25, Mikhail and Dan will be back.
Thank you.
So before we let you go, as you know, I always besides the articles and things that I already referred to, how can fans follow Sometimes Sailing on social media and the internet?
We're on all the major handles at Sometimes Sailing.
The only one that's different is X because of the character cap. So on X, formerly known as Twitter, we are Sometimes Sail. But otherwise, we're sometimes sailing on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and Flipboard, where actually it's under my name, Mikkel Woodruff, but our content is on Flipboard as well.
You have a large following, and welcome to the many Sometimes Sailing fans listening. So that your fans and my listeners can get to know you better, let me ask a few questions that I ask repeat guests. So tell our listeners and your fans what's playing these days in your Bluetooth speaker, headphones, or however you consume music.
I'm obsessed with audiobooks. So currently I'm listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's newest book, the Be Useful. And I'm really enjoying it. And I love that he read it also. It just like really brings it home with his accent and his point of view. So really enjoying that currently.
Is it essentially an autobiography or?
This one in particular is kind of, I think it's 7 tips for just being useful in life. It's kind of like his anecdotal stories on how he got to where he is today.
Okay. How about you, Mikkel?
I am listening to my favorite hits from the 2000s, such as Counting Crows recently. I love music. Counting Crows, little Ani DeFranco, Alanis Morissette. I'm feeling my early 2000s era come back to me.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, we've been working on the house, painting and spackling and skim coating walls, so I've got music playing.
Who's your favorite artist or athlete or leader in your area of interest of all time?
I'm gonna have to default back to the artist for me, just because of our time in Spain last year. I've been reinvigorated and so excited about Picasso's work. Just how he changed the course of art history, and how Spanish he was. Like he was the embodiment of Spain. And when we were there, and we were in Malaga last year, and just really feeling what he was pouring onto the canvas or in his sculptures, it was, you could feel it, and you could feel it in the environment. And just
well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we stopped in Malaga on my recent cruise, Virgin Cruise, and we went to the Picasso Museum, and we went to the house he was born in, and
I'm going to support Picasso because that was the first thing that came to mind. We could talk about Picasso for a long time. He's just such a genius. But besides Picasso, I'll switch it up and say I love the artist Pink. I think she has an amazing voice. I love her songs. And I have anxiety sometimes when we travel from a bit of claustrophobia. And listening to her music always helps with my anxiety. And a leader, you mentioned Lisa Lutoff-Perlo. I read her book and I heard your podcast, and I just think she's such an inspiration in the cruise industry, especially for women, and what she's done for women in the bridge and on celebrity ships, and men too, but particularly for a female. So I think she is a leader that I really admire right now after reading her book.
Finally, I know you listen to a lot of podcasts and read books. Then you just mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. Give us a favorite recent book you've read, and give our listeners some podcasts to check out.
This is not including The Joy of Cruising, of course, because that is a shameless plug for your books.
Podcast that I always end up going back to, Pivot, with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher from the Vox Media. Great insight on business and tech. The two of them are just their banter. They're ridiculous, but at the same time, shockingly intelligent and witty. So that's always usually in my rotation.
Yeah, love Kara Swisher.
Yeah. Good.
How about
I like
you,
hearing that.
Mikkel?
We love nonfiction and inspirational self-help and business podcasts. So I'm going to, yes, and your pivot, and also say the best one yet, which is two guys who also have amazing banter, and they kind of report on what's happening with some businesses. Like usually it's 3 stories per episode, and it's a quick 20-minute episode, and they're just like really energetic about it. And anyway, their logo is listed as T-Boy, the best one yet, TBOY. So that's usually.
Well, if you like nonfiction, inspirational, Google a book. It's provocatively titled, but you'll love it. You won't be able to put it down. It's called White Man's Disease.
Thank you. We love a good recommendation, and Dan is literally writing it down right now.
Well, there you go, fans and friends of Mikkel and Dan. You should know a whole lot more about them based on the last 5 minutes than you knew before the last 5 minutes. Mikkel and Dan, thank you for coming back on the Joy of Cruising podcast. All the best to Sometime Sailing. I'll repeat it again, but I already said it. Pencil, you're locked in for sometime first quarter 25.
Perfect.
All righty. And as I like to say, I'll see you on the ocean.
Thank you so much.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.